Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this exclusive sneak peek of a new Atempo solution. My name is Nick Crisp from Paris and the marketing team, and we're here in November, and it sees the arrival of a new product, Miria for Analytics. Miria for Analytics is an essential component of the Miria family, and many of you know Miria already. So it's going to be one of the pillars alongside backup, archiving, migration, and synchronization. So the fifth pillar is Miria for Analytics. So Miria for Analytics will give us a window into our data, let us locate and fingerprint and guide us to move data around our different storages, therefore saving time and money. And to talk, who better to talk about Miria for Analytics than our senior solutions engineer in the US, Mike Oakes. Are you with us, Mike?
I am, Nick. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, yeah. Good to have you on board. And I'm going to hand over to Mike in a few seconds. And Mike will present the solution for around 20-25 minutes. And then we'll take a couple of your questions at the end if we have time. If you do have any questions, always happy to take those. So if you use the question tab to the right of the chat box in the Livestorm interface. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Mike. All yours, Mike.
Thanks, Nick. So my name is Mike Oakes, of course, as Nick mentioned. I'm a senior solutions architect, pre-sales engineer with Atempo. Been in the compute storage industry now, data preservation protection, about 35 years. And again, as Nick mentioned, we're going to talk about our new Miria for Analytics today. And it's going to be, like you said, a sneak peek. We're taking a look at we'll call it our version 1 or a phase 1, and we'll get into that here in a second. And then the release will be the middle of the month. We call our standalone version. So let's get started real quick. So I'm sure a lot of you are already thinking to yourself right now, straight out of the gate as we're starting this presentation, why analytics, and more precisely, why analytics from Atempo? And I'm going to step back just for a second, if I can, and we think about why analytics are important, right? They help us manage our environments, our data ecosystems, or data landscapes, as we call it. And this could be for corporations, organization, entities within an organization. And it comes down to having an accurate picture of what data is where, how's it being utilized, how does it impact my infrastructure, my workflows? So again, why the analytics from Atempo? Let's think about it for a second. Why not be able to gather analytics on things Miria has already acted upon through our data movers? It could be an archive, backup, some type of workflow. But now let's take that a step further. Why not things we haven't previously moved through a data move, right, or acted upon? Right. So if we already have the software appliance that can scan or look for data, let's add an intelligence in to gather important metrics, important information about that data, store it, present it, not just for viewing, but also for analysis, right? To aid in driving business decisions, informed and accurate business decisions for either locations or business units within a corporation. So if you think about it for a second, right, what we're taking a look at here is the ability to learn and act upon results. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as coming up here. But also heterogeneous infrastructures and vendor agnostic. This is a key differentiator because we are not agnostic to one, or we're not a vendor that sells our own solutions. Our Miria product is only going to work on that. We can go across that ecosystem of appliances out there in the marketplace, right? Lowering, of course, storage costs, cloud costs, on-prem and cloud solutions. You may be doing a mix where you need on-prem and cloud. You need to look at that information. And we've been doing this. We have a proven track record that says there's data management at petabyte scale. We've been doing it for many, many years now. So real quickly, how do you start to do that? How do you start to provide those metrics, to fuel those decisions, those changes we want to make? And you need to address some key areas or key challenges of managing data silos. And one of the first one that pops up here is locating the data. Where does it reside within my ecosystem? Right? Is it local? Is it geo-positioned somewhere? But you have to understand where it's at. And once you start to glean that information, this next one is important. And Nick mentioned it earlier about fingerprinting, right? If you think about it, every person has a unique fingerprint. Well, the data should have a unique fingerprint too. And it's not just the name of the data or what the data is being called, the files being called, or the objects being called, right? It's all that metadata that goes with it. Think about, information like time and user and GID and all this other information that we'll store with it within the database. So when you go to look for something and search for it, you don't have to go back and search across your ecosystem with a slow crawling process. It's already inside the database for us. And we can just give you that information on the search. And then coupled with that, and these three I'm going to bring up together, about reducing data silos, right? How do I address that challenge of, all my users have their data in tier one. Oh my God, it's 2 years old and they haven't touched it in a year. How do you start to understand and reduce the data silos consumption, especially on my tier one or tier two expensive storage? And that leads right into improving data workflows because if I can reuse some of that tier one, or I can actually repurpose some of it, because maybe in some locations people only use it during the day, in a different part of the world when the people locally are asleep and the other people are awake. Hey, I could take advantage of those resources so I can do more with what I have within my infrastructure, which goes right into saving time, reducing TCO, improving my CapEx or OpEx, depending on what your model is. Right? It's really about managing that data and managing it at scale. So, what did we see, or how do we begin to address these challenges? And I talked about a phase one, or the rollout here coming, the standalone rollout coming here in mid-November. Think about drawing a line down the middle, just for a second, a visual line here between analyze and decide, and I'll get into it in a second. But the first thing when you're going to manage your data is you have to understand it all. So that's that discovery phase that we see here in the first box. That's including doing that fingerprinting, gathering all the information so I can start to build a clear picture of my data landscape, my ecosystem. Couple that now with the analyze part. Now, this will be maybe I'm looking at what's hot, what's not, who's the largest, where's its position, what's this storage look like. But you start to analyze that information you gathered. And now this is where that line comes in. If you think about now decide and act, and these are important steps, but that decision right now in phase one will be like a manual decision. And I'm going to use the example of maybe we need to archive things off of a tier one, or because we need to save some space. Well, I've decided to do that. Now I need to act upon it. I can build an archiving job, or maybe you decide you want to back it up. But what you want to do is do as an act, but you're going to do it in Miria. The reason being is we did this in a two-phased approach. And we did this because we wanted to make sure the back end is completely full, or a rich suite to understand all the different silos out there. And the classic example I give is when you're looking for data, trying to analyze data, and you're doing it on a multi-protocol type of NAS maybe. So you got an SMB share and you got NFS export, but they're actually sharing out, or they're presenting the same data. Last thing you want to do is count that twice. The number of files, the capacity being used, because it's going to skew the information. So making sure the entire backend was good, and we do this in the first and the standalone release. And then Q1, Q2 2022, we'll roll this in our phase two release into Miria, where you can start to decide and act upon things automatically. Now, maybe something as simple as tagging. I want to archive and I want to back it up. Or maybe it's something I have older data here. I want to build some metrics that say at 2 years of age and a year of not being touched, I want it off of tier one, or I want it off of tier two, and I want it in the cloud, or I want it on tape, or I want to air gap it, or something along those lines. But you can then start to both manually and automatically hit these feature suites within the phase two release coming in Q1, Q2, 2022. Sorry about that. So that being said, the pillars of Miria, we talk about these a lot. And I'm going to leave the one at the top for analytics, one we're talking about right now, alone for a second. If you see here at the 2 o'clock position and the 7 o'clock-ish position, you have Miria for backup and Miria for archive, respectively. These are the data preservation, data protection products we've been doing for many, many years. Tried, true, battle tested. Now, mix that with, or couple that with, 5 o'clock position and the 9 o'clock position. You have Miria for migration and Miria for data moving. These are the newer products. Come on, last 4 or 5 years, right? Think of migration, right? I need to collapse locations, or I need to collapse or reduce or remove legacy storage. I don't need to buy a product and not use it when I'm done. So think of this as time-based. 6 months, right? I go ahead and I migrate my data. When I'm done, I'm shutting off that legacy piece of storage or that co-location or whatever it happens to be. And then I can shut down the appliance as well, right? I've only needed a 6-month license. I'm done with it. No more expenditure, CapEx or OpEx. Now, Miria for data moving. Think of this more as replication, synchronization, copy, sync, and move. Something we're doing on an ongoing basis within our workflow. Right now, the backup, archive, and data moving, these are, think about a subscription model, yearly model with support, or 2-yearly model with support, depending on what your organization needs, but allows you to use the product over a period of time. Now, I bring these 4 up because if you think about it, they're doing different things. They have different things they're keying on, different job functions and feature sets they do, but under the hood, there's a data movement engine, and it's the same for these products. It then is also the same for the Miria analytics product. Why does this become important? Because now I can pick up that information in line in those workflows and start gathering analytic information once we move it in phase 2, move it into the Miria product suite. So I don't have to have a third-party product. I don't have to go out and buy another product. And when you have a workflow from Miria already, backup or archive, the analytics portion comes free. There's no extra cost for it to gather analytics about information in line, like we're talking about here, but also externally, right? I have, 10 or 20 petabytes external from Miria that I need to get information on. You can go do that. There's no cost to do that. And it doesn't matter about the vendor's product line or who it is. We're agnostic. As long as we can talk to it, we can pull analytic information from it. So that being said, so real quickly, we're going to do like 3 quick overviews here. The first one says cross storage holistic view. Think about it as what's the picture of my storage, where things are at, how they're populated, how old are they. We'll talk about search and identifying. It's more, I already done the fingerprint. How do I go find some data that's already been ingested into the Miria for analytics? Then, of course, the last one's that locate that cold data and archive, and showing an archiving task real quickly on how you set one up after you've decided on some information you want to act upon. So real quickly, that cross-storage holistic view, you see the dashboard here. And this dashboard you can change, and we're going to show you how to do that in a second real quickly. But we're going to look for things like, the largest directories containing files, the largest files themselves, storage capacity, and so forth. So like I said, this is configurable, as is the landing page when you first logged in. That's important because you can configure different landing pages for groups. You can also assign users to have certain access because maybe they're managing their own storage within your ecosystem. Maybe they're paying on how much they're using. They need to understand the capacity usage. Well, this can help them do that. And they can just see their information. So you can get granular on who sees what. So that being said, if we want to take a look here, what we can see is when we first bring it up, you notice nothing's popular in our dashboard. There's a summary view across the top, and all our resources are up in the top here defined. I can go down and have resource groups. I can get localized into a particular piece of storage if I so choose, or localized groups. And from there, it's simply I can go down and click on Go to Analytics, or in the left-hand pane, if I expand it, I can actually tell it, hey, hit the Analytics button and bring up everything that's already been gathered on things we've looked at. A summary view at the top, different volume usages, size, aging at the bottom. And depending on what I want to choose and what I want to see in my dashboard, because I can make it customizable, I can customize it. So I can go up and hit the star button, the favorites button, and pick what I want. So I'm going to have volume usage. I hit the summary view already. I'll go in and look at the top number of objects and the top number of directories holding data and size-wise. Then I simply go back to the left-hand pane, hit my dashboard button, and you see it's already pre-populated or populated, right? You can go in and pick out what you want, take a look at what you want, and there's a configure button at the top. Maybe you want to make some changes. I want to go in and I don't want to see maybe one of these. I don't want to see volume usage anymore. I just want to see top objects and directories. Or I want to go into the summary view and remove things. In this case, we're going to remove resource, and it disappears immediately. So you can start to configure what you want to see very, very quickly so you can drill in with this tool and find exactly the information you need in a very short amount of time. Now, the second one we talked about was that search and identify after that fingerprint has been done. And what you can do is you can go in and you can start to search on more than just a name, because anybody can search on a name. But what about the underlying information? How old is it? When's this last modified? All that different information, the metadata that was gathered from it, and search locally. So I don't have to go out and search across all my different storages to go search into the cloud or something along those lines. So to do that here, what you see is we'll bring up here quickly. We'll see our summary view again. There's no dashboard, but the information's already been populated. You can simply go up to the search button. I know I'm looking for something that's a movie, so I'm going to do a .mov. Now, I find that, but I want to drill in even more. I can pick a name, and maybe I'm going to use some wildcards with it. I know plan is part of it. I go ahead and add that, and now I want to add maybe a modification date, something after, right? After, we'll say September 1st. So we go ahead, we'll choose that date, and now we see we've added that in, and we found now 15 objects on Atempo DM7. We can go ahead and click on the data view of that, right, and go into it. And now what we can see is there's a set of things we found that match that criteria. Not just the name, but we got a little granular because there could be thousands of names with plan in it or .mov. We can drill down into just particularly what we're looking for. Oops, I apologize. I clicked the button there. And of course, I fat fingered it, moved it fast for a second there. But what you can do is you can also start looking at, object, the times, links. You can start to get granular on what's shown for that data that you found. So the last one here is locating data, and I apologize for that last one. Locating data and reducing storage costs. Think of this as tiering. I found some stuff that's old or a particular age. I want to get it off of, or I want to back it up, or something along those lines. But you can now create. So we saw those 4 things. The decision to act upon. I decide I want to move something, and then I go ahead and act upon it. This will be setting up, of course, that act upon within the standalone version. So if you think about it, we'll go in here. We'll bring up our solution again in our dashboard that's already been populated. We'll see, hey, the summary at the top, and we'll start to look at, you know what? I want to drill into Atempo DM7. I see all this information. Now, how old is some of this? We see over a year old. Some of this quite almost 200 plus terabytes, 250 terabytes of data. I don't need all of this sitting here on this piece of storage. I need to reclaim some of this, or I want to archive some of this. So we can go in, build an archiving solution with Miria, and go ahead, and this is going to go through pretty quick. I apologize. And when it's done, what'll happen here is, you notice, I'm going to stop it for a second so you can take a look. You have the notion of coming off of a source. Now, this is the manual. Once you do this automatically or tag it in phase 2, it'll do this for you right out of the box. But you notice at the bottom, you can start to choose some things, and there's a last modification date. There's also creation time and other things you can key in on. You can set older than, in this case, it says 6 in a day. It's going to change to a month when I start this back up again. But the reason why I stopped it too is there's some advanced features in here. If you click on that advanced features button, you can also say, hey, by the way, I need to delete the primary storage once I've moved it off to my secondary archive. Or maybe I want 2 copies in 2 locations. Once it's gone to both locations and we verified and we put hashes with it, delete it off the primary storage to free that space up. You notice here when I click it, it went ahead and switched to months. And then you just start the task up and runs, and then you can go back into the Miria tool for analytics and start to look, hey, did the decisions I make actually have an impact, or did it not? Did I maybe need to change it? Did I forget to delete the data? Something along those lines. Or do I manually want to delete it after the fact? You can do that as well. And when we go and check those data positions again, we'll update what's no longer there. We'll change the patterns, change the sizing, change the repartition. So why is all this important? Think about it for a second. A tool that's equipped to act, right? Copy, move, delete data. Place it where it needs to be, tier it off, get an understanding of where it resides, and am I effectively using it, right? And I did mention down below enable data tiering. But what does that do in the long run for me? It helps optimize my storage costs. It helps optimize my CapEx versus OpEx. And one thing I want to mention here, we're all software, right? So this is, in some cases, it may be an OpEx or maybe a CapEx purchase, depending on what you're doing, but you can use your own hardware. And we have sizing guides, and we help with these to repurpose your own hardware that you have on site. And it's not very big. Could be virtual machines, could be base metal, right? But help to optimize those storage TCO costs, which leads into one final thing here: modelizing storage over time, or modeling your storage over time. What did it look like in May? What did it look like in June? What did it look like in July? Did some of the decisions I've made earlier on impact me in a positive or negative way? And if not, why? Or if it did, why did it help impact? But also, one thing to mention with this equipped to act, all this information that you glean or you're getting, these analytics information you're getting out of the storage, nothing comes back to Atempo. This is your product, and it's our philosophy, our belief. It's your information at your site. It's your data metrics. We have no business knowing about it. Everything stays with you. Nothing comes back to Atempo. Nothing is sent to the cloud. You can send data to the cloud. We're not going to get a copy of it. Right. So that's very, very important. It's your information. You keep control of it. So real quickly on the storage support, and I'm not going to go into all of these, but if you think about it, it talks about scale out now to the left. It's also maybe you have a generic NAS. Maybe it's an SMB that you've built or some type of NFS export that you built off a particular piece of storage. If we have a network connection, we can get analytics information about it. Also, the object storage, speaking of protocol S3 or OpenStack Swift or something along those lines, we can speak to it. We can gather information, scale out file systems, air-gapped solutions, as well as the standard cloud you would think about. And all the big ones are there. So GCP, AWS, you'll see Microsoft Azure, and all the others that are listed there. So we can talk to those clouds as well to get all that information out of those particular apparatuses to provide you the best analytic information to actually address your workflow needs or your organization's workflow needs. Now, real quickly, I just want to jump into this because there's been some questions about, user profile. And I mentioned earlier, you can build your own dashboards, you can build your own landing pages here, and that's what you see on the left. But coupled with that, there can be an email two-factor authentication as well as a hard key. Now, maybe it's a USB key you're going to plug into your laptop. Now, why does that become important, though? And also to the left, which you'll see, is the type of devices we support. So you see some type of tablet, iPad or some other tablet on the market, as well as PCs. So whether it be a laptop, desktop, or something on Mac, Windows, Linux, supported as well. So that's as long as it has a browser that we can get to the Miria Analytics tool with, we can present, configure, show you all that data. One thing you won't see here, small smartphone devices, those are not yet supported within the product line. Now, that being said, what are those key benefits? And I keep going back to these, and this is important, right? So I need to understand my data landscape, understand my ecosystem, right? So localized data, where is it? Is it locally? Is it geo-positioned? And if it is, how much is where? But also getting to understand and identifying and specifying data. That's that middle one. That's that fingerprint, because that's the key here, right? To getting and understanding the analytics information is having a fingerprint. So I'm not going and searching again, I'll say, not researching, data across my ecosystem. Right? I pull the data into the database, into Miria, and now I can build a picture of it. Now, if it changes over time, of course, we'll update. But you can do one-time walks every day or every couple of days. You can set things up to look for data on these different pieces of storage. Or maybe you don't want to impact that much and you just want to probe it every once in a while. We'll start to build a picture over time of what that storage looks like or those storages look like. And then allows you also keep it organizing data pools. And this is one I get into a lot with people. Maybe it's things in different locations. Maybe I have data in a set in New York and a set in Australia. People, I should say, but I have a compute center in New York, or maybe it's in Australia. Take your pick. It's either one. But it's only busy from 6 to 6. There are people in the other time zone are completely flipped. So it's day is night and night is day in each location. Why can't I reuse those resources if they're idle, if they're not being used? Why do I have to go out and buy extra storage? Improving my CapEx model because I'm not constantly buying new storage for each workflow. And again, the big things here that help fuel that, right? Getting insights to make the best business decisions. What's hot, what's not, what's where, who's doing what with what, which translates directly into saving time, money, optimizing your TCO, and also managing your risk, because you may go out and take a look at some data and realize I only have one copy of it. It's only on my production storage. It's not protected. It's not archived. It's not backed up. I have no other copy of it, but it's critical to my business. I need to make some copies of that or put another copy somewhere else that I can get you in the case of emergency or a DR or something along those lines. So real quickly here, Petascale for analytics, right? Or Petascale storage for analytic markets. And what does it really mean? And if you think about it for a second, analytics really is not just a 1 or 2 market vertical anymore. Just about any market, any organization can benefit from understanding the data landscape, who's using it, again, what's hot, what's not, are we efficiently using the resources at our disposal we just discussed across the organizations or just within an organization, right? So taking a look at ROI, CapEx, all the stuff we mentioned previously, right? And my users, are they getting the best out of the data flow or the workflow that they're doing? Or can I improve it for them to return, their analysis that much quicker, right? So improving the return time on a particular application, a particular user suite of applications. And this is what, Miria brings to the market, the advantage Miria is going to bring to the market, because most vendors, they have analytic tools in their own product, but they're limited to just their portfolio. And if you go external to that, either one, you can't go from a homogeneous to a heterogeneous, or you're going to pay some type of money or a per seat license or something along those lines. Right? But this is where Miria has the big advantage, right? With those vendor agnostic tools, we're not tied into any one of them. So we can go across that entire data landscape, providing you information to see, dissimilar platforms, providing users that and administrators and IT execs a heterogeneous view of everything, if you so choose to look at it, and build a storage ecosystem and view of that ecosystem, regardless of the manufacturer and regardless of where it's positioned. And that becomes really important, because if you think about it for 1 second, everybody's going to see the little pop-up to the right, included with your Miria license, and I'm going to explain that in a second. But we're vendor agnostic. If we can talk to that piece of storage, that appliance, we can gather metrics, information about it, some analytic information about it. There is no user limit. It's not a seat-based license here. It's not a seat-based protocol here. Unlimited data capacity and no time limit. Now, what do we mean by that? So there is no time limit. If you have a license for Miria, you get Miria for Analytics. When I say a license for Miria, think about licensing a workflow. I'm doing a backup or I'm doing an archive, and maybe it's 2 petabytes. Well, that's great. And that's 2 petabytes that Miria is working on in a workflow. But maybe you have 10 petabytes external to that. You don't need another license to go and start gathering analytic information for that. You can use Miria and go out and grab that information, pull it into Miria for Analytics to grab that information, pull it into Miria itself, and display in those dashboards. So you get an understanding of your entire infrastructure without paying any extra cost, because you already have a workflow in place. There's no more capacity license needed, unless, of course, you find out, let's say you go out and there's that 10 petabytes externally, oh my God, I got 1.5 petabyte that nobody's ever backed up, nobody's ever archived. If it fits within your 2 petabyte license that you already have, you're fine. Maybe you need to expand it, but either way, choice is yours. You get complete view of your entire data landscape, your data ecosystem throughout your organization. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Nick for any questions, comments. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Mike. That was fabulous, as always, and bang on time till 25 minutes. I can set my clock by you now, so that's great. We do have a couple of questions, so I'll just run those past you, Mike, if that's okay.
Sure.
You mentioned, I think it was in the second use case, about fingerprinting, and it was one of the concepts which is, I think, very important for analytics. One of the people out there looking to have a bit more detail about how analytics can help with fingerprinting, and maybe just go into a bit more detail about the concept of fingerprinting, perhaps.
Right. So, and I think I mentioned this earlier on, but everybody has a unique fingerprint that identifies you from everybody else. So the notion we have here is so should your data, and being able to fingerprint that and then store that fingerprint with all of the relevant information. And we saw some of it. So you looked at modification times, access times, file names, partial file names, when things are, who's a user or group or whatever it's part of. All of that metadata with the file is part of that fingerprinting process. And we give it a unique fingerprint ID that's never duplicated and is generated out of the Miria for Analytics. So when you go to search, when you need to go look for something, you can easily drill into, just by giving a couple pieces of information that's contained within that fingerprint ID, which is storing all of the metadata, to help you easily find it without having to go research all your storage again, search again all of your storage. I keep saying research.
Okay, well, research is obviously one of our big sectors, so we often talk about research. Another interesting question is actually about analytics tools, because on the market there are quite a few tools out there, and the question is basically what extra does Miria bring to the party? Because I understand that in 2025 we'll have on average 3 analytical tools for our storages. How does Miria fit into that, and what advantages would you say that the solution brings?
Well, one of the big first ones is completely non-dependent on any of those vendors' particular workflows, right? So when I say this, so we're agnostic. This is the best word to describe. We don't care about who the vendor is of the particular storage. We can search them all as long as you have a connection to them. And there's no seat license, as I mentioned earlier. But more importantly, you're not with Miria for analytics. That's already coming within the Miria portfolio. You don't have to go buy another tool. I don't have to license another tool. I'm not spending more money. I'm not increasing my CapEx, increasing my OpEx to understand the data landscape I already have. So simplifying the tool set, but increasing the viewability, I'll call it, of everything within my data ecosystem is a real big advantage that Miria brings to the marketplace.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Perhaps just one more question, and again, you touched on this a bit at the end of the presentation, is about how far analytics goes in terms of storage support, in terms of compatibility or supportability. How would you answer that?
So as I said, and you keyed on it too, right? As long as we have a connection to it, whether it's cloud, some type of NAS, a parallel or high performance file system, we can glean analytic information out of it. We can pull out that metadata and present it in a way that's easily understood, so you can make quick business decisions on things that need to be done, whether it's purchasing of new storage or deleting some old antiquated legacy storage or something along those lines. But you get a complete picture very, very quickly with the tool. You saw how quickly I set one up, or we set one up here in this demonstration. It doesn't take long. Once it's up, I can build my dashboards in a matter of moments and get a clear picture of what's going on throughout my organization.
Okay, brilliant. Just very quickly, we had a few more questions, written questions as well, on the REST API, and Amel, who's with me in the room, she's actually answered one of the questions there to say that analytics is 100% REST API.
It is
compatible. So that's an important point, I think. Good question. And also on customizing analytics, can we drill down to a specific period of time and filter on a kind of monthly basis and so on? And the answer to that, I think you can confirm, Mike, is definitely we can.
Yeah, absolutely. That first set of slides we looked at, that first little demo that popped up, showed aging and times called reparation in the GUI. You can drill into that, and you can set those as some of those search criteria looking for data or a particular piece of data.
Okay. Very good. I think we'll just about come running out of time now. It's there is a poll as well. If you'd like to take a few seconds, it's always great to get your feedback, and there are quite a few people in the session today. So if you'd like to just take a minute to answer the two poll questions that we have, that would be very useful. And you can see Mike there up on the screen with his photo and his email address. So please do get in touch with Mike if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer those. So I'll leave the session open for a few more minutes, and if you have any more questions, you want to send those in, that's great. I'd like to thank everybody sincerely for joining us today, and obviously Mike for his presentation. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
And do see us again on another webinar session. If you go onto our homepage and browse down, you'll have a list of all the webinars that are upcoming, and we'll be happy to talk to you then. And we're also at SC21, and if you are going over to SC in St. Louis the week after next, Mike will be there and the rest of the team. So maybe see you there, and if not, speak to you very soon. All the best. Have a great day, and thank you very much.